in high school students. Since then, she has been developing K-12 literacy programs for English learners for 25 years. The latest program she worked on, Reach for the Stars, was one of the most fun because it has so many songs, which she sang over as she helped craft them. And I can tell she really loved those songs. Now you know more about our presenter. Please welcome Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for such a nice introduction, Luciana. And welcome, everybody. Wow, I feel so like I'm in the world, really. It's great to be with all of you educators. And I'm very excited to talk about meeting the challenges of teaching literacy to young English learners. It's a really exciting time in students' lives when they are 4 or 5 years old and just starting school. They are entering a whole new world away from family, where they will become independent in a sense, and they're learning more than just literacy skills. But it can be scary to walk into a classroom for the first time and be expected to learn to read and write in English. You know, you hear unfamiliar sounds and your favorite animal or food is called something different, and you're not sure how to act. Can you play? Can you talk? Students at this age are eager and curious, but also easily distracted. And as their teacher, we are challenged to capture their attention and teach them literacy concepts in English that they probably don't know in their primary language. So this webinar will explore strategies to meet those challenges. We're going to start off with, let me just talk about the 3 questions that I hope that we answer. And please, I hope this will be a very interactive webinar and that you'll share your ideas in the chat, because I don't have all the answers. There are so many answers, and I'm here to learn from you as well. You know, we're a forum of leaders and we can all learn from each other. So we're going to look at these 3 questions. What are the top challenges of teaching literacy to very young English learners? And why do we have those challenges? And what strategies can help overcome these challenges? And we're going to start with a poll. You will see a poll for you. And I'm going to ask that you choose one challenge, your top challenge of teaching your young English learners. If there's, I'm going to read the list that I have, but if your challenge is not on here, please put it in the chat and we'll take a look at them. Students speak their home language in class more than English. Students are easily distracted and it's hard to keep them engaged. I spend a lot of time, class time, explaining activities and expectations. I have a wide variety of language and literacy levels in my class, and my lessons don't always meet their needs. Students lack exposure to school language. And by school language, I mean that specialized language in social studies, math, geography, or there's not enough class time. So pick your top challenge. And again, if click it in the poll, and if you don't see what your top challenge is, feel free to put it in the chat. I see some people are putting it in the chat, and I wonder if you're able to click the poll, because then we're going to get a percentage and see what is the top challenge for all of us. Okay, the results are in. Number 1 was number 1. Students speaking their home language class more than English. And coming up second looks like students are easily distracted and it's hard to keep them engaged. That's maybe why I put these two at the top of the list as well. Are there any others in the chat, Luciana, that are different? Doesn't look like it.
No, I think everybody picked one of the choices you gave them.
That's great. Okay, so when we get into these challenges, so I have chosen 3 of those challenges from the list, so I could have something to focus on. But the challenges and the solutions to the challenges, the strategies, really overlap a lot. So I think even if you have a different challenge, I think you're going to hear in this webinar some strategies that are going to help you regardless. So our very young English learners are juggling a lot. They're learning English words, literacy skills, and how to function in a school setting. So we're going to take a look at what these challenges can, how these, look at some of these challenges and how they're caused. And again, as I'm talking, if you have any thoughts or you think of a solution or a strategy that pops into your head, feel free to put it in the chat. Again, really like to share everything. So the 3 challenges that I'm going to focus on are, 1, my students speak their home language in English class. And the reason this is a challenge, a new environment, new language, and new skills is a lot to adjust. And in this situation with not do, feel untethered and naturally seek out what is known and comfortable, their primary language, something they can. But this can be a challenge to teachers because our goal is to teach literacy, English as the medium instruction. And parents expect their children to be working on English in English class. And, we have limited English instruction time. So we think we have to limit or maybe not even allow the use of students' primary language. So for this challenge, we have to figure out how and when to use students' primary language in English class. The second challenge that we're going to look at is my students are easily distracted and it's hard to keep them engaged. So children at this age they naturally have shorter attention spans. They are very curious. That curiosity can get them off course and away from our structured English learning activities. They can also easily get frustrated and overwhelmed with all the new things they're trying to learn, and then they disengage. So for this challenge, we have to figure out how to engage young learners. Third challenge we're going to look at is I have a variety of language and literacy levels in my class. We may feel that during our whole class instruction, the lower level students are not getting it while the advanced students are getting bored. And then we may find that we're giving the advanced students busy work while we focus on the struggling students. So for this challenge, we need to figure out how to support different levels in equally meaningful ways. Before I move into looking at each of these 3 challenges, Luciana, is there anything in the chat that we might want to share?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do. So we have Beanie told us that the inhibition is another problem for students who have to learn English as a foreign language or as a second language. That's a good point.
Yes. And I think there's one strategy I'm thinking of that we're going to come to a couple of them that I think will help with that as well. Okay. All right, let's jump in. Okay, so the first challenge, my students speak their home language in English class. Is that okay? My answer is emphatically yes. We can use students' home language strategically as a tool to teach English. So we can capitalize on students' comfort and love of their primary language and use it to jump into English. The key is to use home language strategically, because we do have the goals of teaching English, getting students to speaking and listening in, reading and writing in English, but using home language strategically can be a real bridge to that. So a few of the strategies, and after I go through the strategies, I'm going to go into examples of each of them, are to build students' confidence by showing their home language is valued. Elevate students' home cultures by getting them engaged, to get them engaged. Through images and text, show students their lives in a global context to widen their worlds. Allow home language, especially at the beginning of the school year. And allow home language in more unstructured, indirect instruction activities like warm-ups, previewing stories that you're going to read, sharing time, projects. So let's take a look at each of these 5 strategies. Let's take a look at examples of how to do those, possible ways of doing those. Make a connection to home. So send home a letter or an email and let families know what you're doing in class. So this particular homeschool connection letter is sharing the vocabulary that they're learning in class, the phonics element, what they're writing, what they're reading, what they're doing. But then very special is that we suggest an activity that students can do with their families to reinforce the vocabulary, theme, the language that they're learning in class. So this particular unit is about the senses, see, hear, smell, taste, feel. And we are suggesting that at mealtime, ask your student what senses tell them about the food, using the vocabulary and language frames. So even if family members don't have the English to do this activity, students can show off their new knowledge since they have been learning these skills. And when the family grapples with the language and the activity together, it reinforces what learning is all about. You know, no one is born knowing everything. We are all learning all the time. And this homeschool connection is a powerful acknowledgement that learning happens everywhere, not just at school. And also students sharing their school experience with their families in whatever they're comfortable, boosts confidence and instills the idea that education is important, meaningful. And then you can bring this full circle by having students then share in class what they did with families. Another strategy is to show students that their home language is valued. So again, being strategic about when we welcome home language, especially at the beginning of the year when students are transitioning, and do activities that are more unstructured and social, such as warm-ups, sharing stories, previews of what you're going to read, and projects, for example. So, for example, students walking into class, you might do a little warm-up that relates to the last lesson. So let's say they learned the letter M. Have them say some M words, and they can say M words in their home language if the language sounds transfer. And you can still check to hear if they have the sound correct. And then ask them to teach you words in their language, even if it is your language, because this gives them the power of language. And that will transfer over to learning English as well, that excitement. You know, once they learn some new words, they'll go home and say, Mama, I can say marshmallow. And Mama might say, what is marshmallow? And I got excited about learning new words, and I went and just Googled, how do you say marshmallow in some other languages? for you Spanish speakers, please tell me if this is correct, but I learned that marshmallows is malvavisco. It's such a beautiful word. And I went and just checked and found a recording. I think I did both of them at the same time, but this is marshmallow in Arabic and in Chinese. And please, Arabic and Chinese speakers, let me know if those are correct. Okay, I see in the chat that Alvavisco is correct. I'm going to use that word a lot. But, it's languages are very fun, and we want to instill that in our students. Okay. Next strategy is similar, elevate home culture. We all know that instruction is more powerful when kids see themselves and their home culture in learning materials. When students see familiar common topics like family, weather, and they see children like themselves, they feel connected and seen. They can identify, and that is a really powerful base for learning. We can connect through those common and familiar topics. So we allow home language, for example, when we are previewing a story. So when the students, you and your student talking about and preparing to read a story like this story is Where is the Goat? And they are looking at the pictures and they're predicting what they think is going to happen in this story. What is it about? It's okay for them to speak in their home language. And in fact, it's a great way to get students engaged. And then we have them hooked, they're talking about it and they're into it. And when we have them hooked, we move into teaching English, the vocabulary, the phonics, the language structures. Students are invested because they've made connections with the images using their home language at times. And now they want to know what these words say. So it's kind of a hook. And then extend to global contexts. So we show photos and videos that represent our students' lives, experiences. Don't stop there. Actually start there. So your topics and seeing children their own age validates their lives and experiences, but then showing families in Japan, Bulgaria, Finland, the UAE, the US, China, Brazil, opens students' minds to a global context. And showing children in different situations, in situations that are similar and different, like the children with the goats. Those are children and goats all over the world. So we know there are children and there are goats similar, but the goats look different all over the world. The kids look different all over the world. And that lets a child see that they are included in the world. We all have weather, we all wear clothes. We can identify that, but at the same time, we can learn that there are different kinds of weather and different kinds of clothes around the world. Before we leave this first strategy, using home language strategically, I just want to share 3 tips about this. And the first one is, it is best practice that we as English teachers use English as much as possible, even if students are responding in their home language. The second one is, if we do find ourselves using English and the home language, we should use only one language per activity, or else students, will tend to tune in just to the language they're comfortable with. So if within one activity, you're going back and forth between, let's say, English and Spanish, they're going to tune into the Spanish, and what you're saying in English might get lost. So per activity, best practice to stick with one language. And then the third one, we can build on students' responses in their home language by putting out sounds in L1 and L2. being cognates, or simply just giving the English words, translating in, marshmallow, malvavisco. Sorry, other way around, malvavisco, marshmallow. So let us move to the second challenge. My students are easily distracted and it's hard to keep them engaged. Sorry, I have to take a sip of coffee. So I am curious to know what you do to engage your students. And what, as we're talking through these strategies that I've come up with, if you could share in the chat, what are the most fun activities you've done with your students? What theme do they love the most? What type of activity do they like the most? How do you keep your students engaged? Keep up the sharing in the chat. That's a great learning. So what I'm going to focus on here is to make it fun, active, and collaborative. Focus on themes that interest very young learners. Include a variety of input and output. And input is what you take in, what you read, what you hear, what you see. And output is what you do, what you write, what you make, what you say. And again, we're going to show examples of each of these. And then do a lot of repetition, but in a variety of ways that will keep them engaged. And then keep students focused with routines. That are intuitive, but you'll see. Let's jump into the first one. Make it fun and active. So I could teach the theme of jobs with the sound spelling of J and some language frames students can use to talk about jobs. Or I could use a song that showcases a job like being a diver who studies jellyfish, a song that repeats the J sound, embeds the language frames, and gives a view into a really cool job. And songs, as you heard in Luciana's introduction, are my favorite. They can be played over and over, and each time you can vary what students do. In this song, students can jiggle when they hear jiggly or jiggle. They can rub their bellies when they hear jelly belly jellyfish. You can divide students into groups, one group singing the first verse or the odd number lines, the other group singing the second verse or the even number of lines, many things. So if you don't mind, I would like to share this song with you because it is my ultimate favorite. And we're going to see if my skills at showing a video are good. Okay. Oopa. Where is my Sherry thing?
While you do that, Honor, so just letting everybody know that you will receive an attendance certificate and honors showing a few pages from our Very Young Learners program, Reach for the Stars. And I just put the link to our page in the chat.
Okay, I can't find my sharing thing. Sorry. If I can get this. Okay, I found it, optimized, and here we go. Everyone's able to see. Are we seeing unit opener?
Yes, we see the CPT, which is classroom presentation tool, by the way. And it's loading. There you go.
Jiggle, jiggle, jellyfish. Jiggle, jiggle, jellyfish. Jellyfish. See the diver, she sees you. It's her job to study you. Jiggly, jiggle, jellyfish. Jelly belly, jellyfish. Jiggle, jiggle, jellyfish. They're
So is that something that you think your students could be engaged in? Let me get to my slideshow. Play from current screen. Are we still there? Are we seeing the correct slide?
We are. We're back.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed that song as much as I did and could see how engaging a song can be. Okay, next, I don't see my chat anymore, but that's okay. Luciana will keep me up to date on that. So talk about collaboration. So this example that I'm going to give is with a collaborative writing activity. So writing can be a really big task for young learners. They have to focus on learning how to write letters, how to put them together to make words, how to find the meaning of those words, how to put words together to make meaningful sentences. And it can be really hard for students to do on their own, and they can get frustrated and distracted and go off task. But following a shared or interactive writing routine makes writing an engaging group effort. So in this example, they've been learning about the letter Y, the sound spelling Y, and they've read a lot about yams, and now they're going to write about them. So they see a picture of a half of a yam growing roots, and we're going to talk more about routines, but they're writing routines. So they're doing, and imagine they're all sitting in front of, say, a piece of chart paper, and they are going to write something together. So the teacher is going to model his or her thinking and say, something like, I see a yam, it has roots. The roots grow in the water. Then we can plant the yam, grow more yams. And now the students are thinking about, what do they write? And they say, let's write roots grow from the yam. So together they've come up with the sentence they want. And now the teacher helps them out. What sound does roots start with? And they know, R. And yes, what letter should we write first? R. Okay, so now they've done this together. They've come up with this together. And now they're going to go, and each student volunteered to go up and write a letter. They can write one letter at a time, going through this, collaborative effort together. Some students may write a whole word. Some students may write a whole phrase. But the engaging part of it is that they've worked together to do this. Okay, focus on the themes that interest your students, your, young learners. And this is a little bit of a visual break, but I'm very curious to know what kinds of themes and topics your students like to learn about. In my experience, animals, playing, friends, celebrations, music, topics of interest in kindergarten. And are there any others, Luciana, that people are putting in the chat? This is kind of low-hanging fruit here, it's a simple one. Teach what students are interested in, or use those themes.
Yeah, we have a lot of people writing in the chat here. Food. We have a lot of people saying they love the song, by the way.
Oh, good. Space and dinosaurs. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good one. I hadn't thought of that. Clothes and animals. Yeah, music. Awesome. Okay, so then this one, to include a variety of input, output. So I kind of mentioned that inputs are what students see, hear, read. Output includes what they create, what they say, write, make, and do. Inputs can be text, visuals, video, audio. Outputs can be hands-on projects, singing, participation in games, talking about a video or an audio clip, writing letters and words. And so, to engage and challenge our students, we need a variety of inputs and outputs. It's not just about what they like to do or what they're good at. That's important, but at this age and in school for the first time, it's also about showing them different ways of expressing and the benefits of different input, being able to read and write and listen and view and speak. So I like to take another adventure into a video here to see what you think of this input. Okay, see if I can do this again, maybe even faster. We were looking at this one. Did I do the right one? I hope so. So I've been learning about growing up, and you can see, I'm going to show the video in a second, but you can see that an interesting output is a project. They're going to make a learning output, something they're teaching somebody, teaching something they know. Before that, the video that they watch is about growing up, what they want to be when they grow up.
In the community, people are working every day. What do you want to be when you grow up? When I grow up, I want to be a baker. Bakers make cakes, cookies, and bread. Bread is yummy with jams and jellies. What do you want to be when you grow up? When I grow up, I want to be a vet. Vets help lots of different animals. They work with dogs, cats, and horses too. What do you want to be when you grow up? When I grow up, I want to be a gardener. Gardeners grow fruits, flowers, and vegetables. They can sell them at the market. What do you want to be when you grow up? When I grow up, I want to be a scientist. Scientists explore to find out about animals and plants. They watch and take notes and ask questions.
Okay. Hopefully it's, clear that using a variety of input and output, for one example, videos can be a really good way to engage students. And there's so much you can do with a video. A lot is packed into that. There's a lot of language. You can listen to parts, rewatch parts. It's a piece of content that you can work with for a long time and in a variety of ways. You can talk about it. You can go back, particular activity. They're going back and looking to see what they see and circling it and numbering in the order of what they see. So next one is that we should teach a lot of skill competition, but through a variety of input and output. So what it means is not just drilling students on skill over in one way. In this example, this is 4 different pieces of content, and they all are teaching long A words. So you see where I've highlighted, this is a unit opener, and we embed a long A word in the unit opener. Then in this song, we have long A words embedded throughout. And then this chant, again, long, they chant song and not even really realize they're learning long words, that's being reinforced, and they're getting practice with it because they're just engaged in the chant and the song forth. printing words with long A. And then even in this video, which my one video I'm going to show you, it's about a geographic explorer who caves, another long A word, which we've embedded long A words in the video. And I'd be curious to see if you can pick them out as we go along, but I'm going to show you this video. And I'm getting really good at this, aren't I? Going faster.
You are. Look at you.
I really love this video.
This is Genevieve von Petzinger. She's a National Geographic explorer. She explores caves. She wants to learn many things, like when did people first learn to write? When did people first learn math and music? Genevieve knows that long, long ago, people lived in caves. She studies the art in the caves. It is some of the oldest art in the world. The people who lived in the caves drew marks on the walls. Genevieve studies the dots, lines, triangles, and circles on the cave walls. The art tells her about the people. The shapes might tell stories. Maybe this is the first writing. She studies the art to learn about the people before us. She wants to learn about the world. What do you want to do? What do you want to learn about the world?
Okay, I was so engaged in that I forgot where we are. Didn't. That's a way to keep students engaged, and hope you enjoyed that. Okay, and I think this is our last one on this second challenge about student engagement. Excuse the blocks of text, but as we walk through this, we're going to see, you don't need to read and understand all that. But this is showing 4 routines: a vocabulary routine, listening, phonics routine, and reading routine. So routines can be very helpful for keeping young learners focused. Students new to the school setting have a double cognitive load when learning new content. They have to learn the actual content, new vocabulary, and they learn how to do the to learn it. So we can alleviate some of that load by using a routine and using it over and over and over. The steps then become, and the students don't need to pay attention to the steps of the activity anymore. This kind of relates to that challenge of I'm spending a lot of time in explaining how to do things. So this can eliminate some of that. You know, students learn the routine. They know when they're going to learn a vocabulary word that they're going to follow these 4 steps. They're going to pronounce the word, they're going to rate the word, they're going to define the word, they're going to repeat the word. And they're going to do that same routine every time they learn a vocabulary word. Focus just on learning that word. And this is good of the school year. You know, we set the routines, so we teach things in the same way every time. But what's really important, and we keep the steps simple and we repeat them every time, but what's really important is students are comfortable with routines and extend and customize them. For example, in a vocabulary routine, we could, for this last step of define the word, we could, instead of defining ourselves for the students, we could ask a volunteer to guess what the word means. In a listening routine, and this listening routine is about singing the songs, We could have students sing songs in different groupings, doing different actions, swapping out words, even adding their own verse. In a font routine, this last step is using a flashcard to show the letter on one side and the sound spelling on the other side. And we could have a volunteer do this step, showing the flashcard and the letter and asking the class what the sound is, have them be in charge. Or we could have students make their own flashcards with different T words, for example. This is the flashcard for T with tiger. And last example, in a reading routine, we could take the concepts of print step, especially later in the school year when students grasped the basic concepts like text directionality, how to hold the book, reading left, right. So routines can be very supportive and help keep students focused and help them make the time to put their efforts into learning the content and not so much organizing the activity. And then also off point to, going into customizing the lessons. Okay, we're on our third and final challenge. I have a variety of language and literacy in my class. I was surprised this wasn't higher on the list, but really interesting to know. So I have 3 strategies for meeting this challenge. Differentiate the output. So whether reading aloud, singing, speaking, writing, doing a project, we can adjust what students do based on what they can do. And as they grasp a skill or piece of content and gain confidence, then we level up a little bit and, always having high expectations of our students. Formative assessment. This is, I think, a cornerstone of good pedagogy. So formative assessments are quick comprehension checks that give us a picture of what an individual student is getting or what they're struggling with. And it's also an opportunity to provide some quick on-the-spot feedback that guides the students to try again in another way, to self-correct, or maybe to be retaught. And the third one, and again, we're going to look at examples of all of these, is to use direct instruction to teach that school subject language. And again, that I'm talking about that kind of specialized language that goes with school subject, social studies, science, math, geography. These are not, a lot of the terms in these subjects we don't use in our daily conversation. So they may be very new to new learners. Okay, so let's look at some examples of differentiate the output. So a few examples of how you can do this. When singing a song, some students may read along and sing the whole song without a problem, while some students may not be able to do that. So you could have them just sing the repeated line, and they will be participating with others. In another example, in speaking, we can ask a question. When we ask a question, some students may be able to answer this question, no problem. What do you see? They say, I see a chair. But others may need some support. So you can use language frames to support. This language frame only gives one word. So this, is a little bit more of an advanced student, where you just say I, and they feel that may trigger them to start their answer. But if they need more, you give more words. I see, oh, chair. They may just say chair, but you want them to say a, so you give a full support, or, almost full support. I see a, and they complete that. And so you have 4 levels of differentiation right here in a very simple, quick, Another example, thinking back to the interactive writing that we looked at with the yams, some students in that scenario may just be able to write a letter and say its sound. Some may be able to write a word. Some may be able to write multiple words and use a capital letter. And some may write a complete sentence. And the important thing is that in all of these scenarios, every student is participating and gets practice in an equally meaningful way. Whether it's producing one word or a whole sentence, or adding a letter to shared writing, or sounding out a word, or correcting spelling, all the students are participating and getting practice. Excuse me. One other thing is that we can differentiate for different learning styles. So some students like to draw, some like to talk, some like to move, and we praise those approaches, but we also build on them. So we make connections to other outputs to encourage building skills. So let's say a student likes to draw and they draw a picture. We can point out to them how drawing is like writing letters. An example of that is, let's say we are doing the sound spelling of C. We're practice writing the letter C. So we can tell them they could draw a caterpillar by drawing a bunch of C's connected, and complete it by making caterpillar. They can do this with M and mountains. There's lots of varieties. And then from there, we build on that, use that they've created this, and we can ask them, what do you think caterpillar starts? What letter does it start with? And, they can label it, even if they write CAT. It's all continuing building on it. And we've started with something that they feel confident and excited to do. Then formative assessment. So formative assessments, again, are quick comprehension checks. So imagine your classroom, you've learned some language. Let's say my examples are about, my first example is about pandas, and they have learned the language frame, the blank is blanking. And, but imagine that your classroom is all working maybe in pairs and small groups on these language frames and the etc. You are going around the room and you're checking individual students doing formative assessments. So I'm going to show you some examples of that. So for this language frame of the blank is blanking, I'm going to, as the teacher, ask the student a question that elicits the target language. And so I'm going to ask, what is the panda doing? In this case, student doesn't answer, can't respond. They just give no answer. So now I'm going to ask some yes, no questions. So is the panda, so we're looking at a photo of a panda, and the panda is sitting in the photo. So we're going for the easy question first. And the student says yes. So now I know the student understands and have given an answer. They feel accomplished. So now I'm going to, give a little bit of a harder question. Is the panda eating? No. So now they've answered two questions and they're feeling confident. In the meantime, we've given them the language to answer the first question. So I go back to the first question. What is the panda doing? The student has heard sitting. So they may say panda sitting, but we want to get them to that complete sentence. So I'm going to ask again and give a language frame. Is the panda doing? The panda is, and now for the student, it clicks, the panda is sitting. And that in doing that formative assessment, I now know what the student is getting, what they're struggling with, and I've given some support and feedback. So it's instructional as well. Another example, a short A word. So vowel sounds can be very challenging. And if the student struggles, we can repeat the sound, say a couple of other words with the sound, and contrast the sound. And once the student understands, have them try to read the word again. So let's look at this example. The teacher says, read this word, and points to the word ant. The student doesn't know, can't do it. So the teacher gives some examples of that sound. Apple, ant, leaf. No, they can hear leaf, that doesn't go together. So they, again, like this one, they've gained some confidence. They've had access to the question. They don't feel lost. They've answered something correctly. So then the teacher might point to the A in ant and have them repeat the sound, and then back to the question again. Read this word, and points to the word ant, and now the student has it, ant. In some cases, the formative assessment might show you that the student has grasped the skill and is ready for more challenge. So in this example, with a high frequency word, teachers point to one book, says book, points to two books, says books, and the student says a book, the books. Teachers continues on, what is this? It is a chair. So the teacher gets that the student understands and can move on. The last example is a formative assessment tailored to two different students. So in this first student gets it, is ready to move on. The student needs a little more support and practice. So in this case, the teacher is asking them to read a word. So teacher says, read this word. The student says, bike, reads bike, read three more words. I can ride. Okay, they got it. They're ready to move on. But in another case with the student, read this word. The student recognizes the B, not quite there. The teacher points to some other long I words that are in the story. Ride, Mike, reads those aloud, clicks it for the, oh yeah, bike. So, and again, these formative assessments are really powerful tools for supporting different language literacy levels in your class, and doing two things: helping you understand where your students are, and then also supporting those different levels. And then our last one is to teach school language. So this is again the specialized kind of language that we hear in math and science and social studies and geography. And again, this may be, these be words that they're not in everyday conversation sometimes, and some of them are, and students just need some direct instruction. And I've just listed here what our typical kindergarten school subject, which may be helpful. In math, they're often learning in kindergarten about numbers, shapes, sizes, plus, minus, equals. And if you can incorporate that in your English class, that's really going to help the students as they move forward through grades and in other subjects. In science, they're usually learning about speed, direction, forces of motion, which is push and pull, animals, habitats, colors, environment. In literacy, rhyming words, synonyms, antonyms, poetry. In social studies, celebrations, holidays, community, needs and wants, time, buying and selling, history, responsibility, jobs. And in geography, water, land, maps, weather, direction. These aren't the only ones. And again, if there are others or thoughts you have about this, share in the chat. And that brings us to the end. By overcoming these challenges, our students will be ready to move on to first grade with confidence and gusto. And now I'm curious to know if you've learned anything from this webinar that you would take back and integrate into your teaching. Please share it in the chat if you have. I have to get back to the chat. And then Luciana, as things pop up, let me know. I'd like to hear what people back to their classrooms.
Use short video clips,
Mm.
science, body parts. So we have so many comments here on our, I don't know if you can see the chat right now.
I'm seeing it.
Have a
I didn't
lot
have it
of
on.
people saying that they love everything that you shared. Songs as warmers. When you were showing the song, by the way, somebody said that's a great class starter, and that's actually how our units start in Rich Stars, right? A lot of strategies that I use in grade 1 and 2. Songs were amazing. Malvavisco, okay, somebody just learned Malvavisco, so did I. All right.
And if anyone has questions, I know there's only a minute left. Sorry, I talked too much.
Yeah, we actually do. Well, first of all, thank you, Honor, for such an amazing presentation.
So much fun.
I loved it. We do have maybe 1 minute for a question. So Alexandra Amaro said, talking about using home language and English as well, how can we use this if we do not understand their home language well?
Yeah, right. So that one part where I said, have them teach you their home language. Yes, it's much harder to do that when you don't speak their home language, but also can be a benefit because now it's not that you want them to speak their home language a lot in English class, but if they do, it can be, encouraging for them. But if you ask them to teach you some words in their language, that can be a real confidence boost to the students. And I think it's probably almost even easier if you don't speak their home language, because then you can't go off too far into, away from English. It's not meant to dominate the English class. It can just be used as a bridge, and, allowing them to, say to a partner something, or to the other students, or to share it, or to tell you, what it means if they can. That might be hard. They might not be able to translate it, but they might be able to show it. I mean, you're teaching them English. How are you teaching them English? They can follow some of the same things that you do. If you point to a picture and you give the word, they point to a picture and give the word in their home language. And then that's only giving them a confidence and showing them how to learn, So yeah, it's a little bit more challenging, but I think it's still very worthy, and just to let them know that their home language is important.
That's the beauty of a multilingual setting, right? We can learn from the kids. All right, unfortunately, we are running out of time, so we're going to have to wrap it up. Honor, again, thank you very much for such an amazing session, and thank you to each one of you who joined us today. Before you leave, just a few reminders. Immediately after the session, you will be directed to a feedback survey to let us know what you thought. So please share your feedback with us. Many of the examples, or all the examples that Honor showed today, are from our Very Young Learner program, Reach for the Stars. I did put the link here in the chat if you want to go and download a few sample units. And you can always go to our website to find out more about our programs. So you will receive the recording, so the attendance, certificate of attendance, and a recording within 5 business days. And you